They say peace is what you find after the war. But for me, peace was the dream until someone declared war on it. I wasn't looking for conflict when I bought 8 quiet acres in the Tennessee hills. Just cows, soil, and a place to start over with the woman I love. But peace, it turns out, makes some people uncomfortable. Especially when it doesn't come with a picket fence and HOA approval. This isn't just a story about cows or fines or bylaws gone wrong. It's about control. And what happens when the wrong people have too much of it. But more than that, it's about what one man can do when he decides to stop fighting for permission and starts building something better. I didn't come here to start a war. After 30 years building tech companies in Seattle, I wanted peace. I wanted soil under my boots, not stock tickers in my inbox. So at 55, I cashed out, packed up, and moved back to the hills of Tennessee, where my grandfather once ran a small orchard, and where I figured I'd find myself again. I bought 8 acres on the edge of what used to be farmland, now slowly eaten away by gated developments and pastel-painted perfection. My land was zoned agricultural, and I made sure of that before signing the papers. There were still cows in the distance, the sound of roosters at dawn, and neighbors who waved with both hands. At least, that's how it started. I brought 4 dairy cows, planted wildflowers and apples, built a chicken coop by hand. My wife, Rosa, retired early from teaching and began making soap from goat milk and herbs she grew herself. It was quiet, humble, and honest. We sold eggs at the local farmers market, and sometimes we just gave food away to the older folks who couldn't get around much. For a while, even the HOA left us alone. Technically, we were just outside their strictest zones, and most people seemed more curious than bothered. They called us the last real farm on the hill. Kids would walk over after school just to pet Clover, our friendliest cow. Then she arrived, Veronica Slate. I first met her at a community mixer. She wore a pastel blazer, pearls, and heels-on gravel. Her handshake was firm, her smile even firmer. She'd recently moved in from California, had big plans for the neighborhood, and was already eyeing the HOA board. "You could be getting a lot more for that land, you know," she said, without even asking my name. "There's talk of expanding the gated side. Buyers are begging for lots like yours." "I'm not selling," I said simply. She tilted her head, smiled tighter. "We'll see." It didn't take long. Within 3 months, Veronica was elected HOA president. Within 4, I got my first violation letter. The letter accused me of visual disharmony because my chicken coop wasn't painted the approved neighborhood beige. Beige. The next month, I was fined for noise nuisance because of the cows. Then it was environmental concern due to unmanaged growth, aka my wildflowers. Then came a $12,000 fine for persistent noncompliance. I brought the paperwork to the next HOA meeting, thinking logic and a cup of decency would prevail. I had my zoning documentation, old photos of the land as a registered farm going back to 1948, and even a notarized letter from the county clerk. But when I stood up to speak, Veronica slammed her gavel. "This is not a forum for individual appeals," she said. "The board has spoken. The neighborhood voted on these aesthetic standards, and if we make exceptions, we invite chaos." There were murmurs. I caught eyes with a couple I'd shared strawberries with last summer. They looked away. "This is not a backwoods patchwork community anymore," she continued. "We are a destination neighborhood. It's time we started acting like one." Rosa squeezed my hand under the table. I looked around. Every board member nodded. One of them, I later learned, was Veronica's cousin. Another worked for a landscaping firm she was heavily invested in. This wasn't just about cows. It was about control. When I left the meeting, there was a flyer pinned to my gate. "Build Back Beautiful, the new vision for High Hills Estates." In the corner, small print, "Proposed luxury expansion, courtesy of Horizon Terra Development." That name rang a bell. I searched through my email and found it. Horizon Terra had sent us unsolicited offers to buy the property at below market value 5 times. I'd ignored them. Now I understood. Veronica wasn't just managing a neighborhood. She was clearing the board for a deal. That night, Rosa sat across from me on our porch. Her tea went cold in her hands. "We could fight," she said softly. "We'd lose," I replied, "or go broke trying." But the next morning, the sky cracked open and poured down rain, and something in me changed. I wasn't going to fight this the way they expected. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to plan, and they would never see it coming. 3 weeks after the HOA meeting, I received another fine. This time, it was for soil erosion, citing that the slope behind our barn had patches of exposed dirt visible from the road. The violation came with a $12,500 penalty and a warning that repeated infractions could result in legal action and forced compliance. That same day, I noticed a white SUV idling near the edge of my property windows, tinted, camera lens barely visible behind the windshield. Not county inspectors. HOA hired property auditors. They were watching me. I'd seen this kind of intimidation tactic before, in business, in boardrooms. You squeeze someone's pressure points until they cave or leave. But this wasn't Silicon Valley. This was my land. And I wasn't going anywhere. Over the next few weeks, the campaign intensified. A massive wooden sign appeared near the entrance of our road. Now selling estate lots. Phase 2 of High Hills redevelopment. Attached was a glossy rendering. Identical gray and white homes surrounding a small green patch labeled Community Park. My orchard, gone. My cows, replaced by hedges. That same day, Rosa came home from the market in tears. Someone had slipped a flyer into her reusable bag. Old farms belong in museums, not neighborhoods. No signature, no return address. Just that sentence, typed in bold, and a QR code that led to Horizon Terra's website. I knew then, this wasn't just HOA overreach. It was a coordinated purge. And the saddest part? People were going along with it. The more aggressive Veronica got, the quieter the neighbors became. The Wileys, an older couple who used to bring us cornbread, suddenly stopped visiting. The Young family across the way, who once let their kids run through our apple rows, now closed their blinds whenever we were outside. Fear spreads faster than reason. I started doing research. Turns out, Veronica hadn't just taken over the HOA, she'd restructured it. Using a loophole in the bylaws, she pushed through amendments that gave the board authority to approve or deny home sales in the interest of community values, set fines and fees without majority vote, override prior grandfathered exemptions, including, potentially, my agricultural zoning. It was bold, illegal in parts. But she was smart enough to wrap it in red tape. I consulted a local land use attorney. He'd grown up in the county and had once fought a major zoning battle. After reviewing the documents, he looked up and said, "You've got them on technical violations, maybe even constitutional grounds. But I'll be honest, it'll take years, and they'll drown you in motions." "I've got time," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Do you have money?" That gave me pause. Because, no, I didn't. Sure, I'd sold companies before, but most of it was reinvested into a green tech startup still in beta. I wasn't poor, but I couldn't bleed hundreds of thousands in legal bills while daily fines piled up. When I got home, there was a new violation notice taped to the barn door. It simply said, "Final warning, legal action pending." That night, I poured myself a drink and sat on the back porch, watching the cows shuffle in for the night. Clover laid her head against Maple's back, and the quiet warmth of the moment burned against the cold cruelty of what we were facing. Rosa joined me, holding a piece of paper. A letter. It was from Horizon Terra, an offer to buy the farm, for a laughably low price. The letter was signed not by a lawyer, but by the CEO himself. And below the signature, "Your neighbors are ready for change. Don't be the one who holds it back." I didn't speak. I just folded the letter, placed it in the fire pit, and struck a match. But deep down, I knew something had to change. Not just for us, but for everyone like us. For the people too tired or too broke to fight back. The ones who gave up their gardens, their porches, their flags, and their dignity to keep the peace. If Veronica and her kind could do this here, they could do it anywhere. And that's when the phone rang. It was Jared, my former business partner from 6 years ago. "You sitting down?" he asked. "I'm holding a scotch," I said. "Good, because we just got approved. That old AI project, it's getting acquired. Final payout should hit your account within 10 days. "How much?" He paused. "North of 22 million, post-tax." I put down my glass, the scotch suddenly too sweet. The cows rustled softly in the barn behind me, and an idea started to take shape, wild, ridiculous, but not impossible. If I couldn't win this war in court, I'd have to buy the battlefield. 10 days. That's how long it took for the money to hit. $22.3 million after taxes. Sitting quietly in a newly created bank account, shielded under a trust name that wouldn't trace directly back to me. I didn't tell Rosa at first. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I wanted her to see the results before the reason. I called my lawyer again, this time with a very different question. "What's the legal definition of a controlling interest in our HOA?" He didn't even hesitate. "Majority vote, usually tied to property ownership." "Why?" "Let's say I owned 60% of the homes in the development." "Then," he said slowly, "you are the HOA." The next call was to a financial consultant I trusted, Nadia Lynn, someone who had helped me divest quietly from a previous venture without alerting the board. I need to make multiple property acquisitions, fast, discreetly, through shell companies, each with different names, agents, and buyers. There was a pause on the line. Then, "Are you laundering money?" "No," I said with a grin. "I'm laundering justice." We started by mapping the neighborhood High Hills estates. 82 properties in total. 26 were already on the market, mostly thanks to Veronica's increasingly oppressive rules. 12 more were in pre-foreclosure or listed off-market. If I could pick off the right 30 homes and convince a few allies to lend me their vote, I wouldn't need to fight. I could own the rules. We created 5 separate holding companies, each one formed in a different state, each with a unique LLC name, a silent partner, and a local lawyer as a listed manager. I also hired a property management firm from Nashville, neutral, reputable, with no connections to me. Every offer we made was cash, slightly above asking, with fast, 15-day closings. Sellers, desperate to escape Veronica's hellhole, jumped at the chance. In less than 3 weeks, I owned 5 homes. By week 5, I had 10. And Veronica didn't suspect a thing. But I needed more than houses. I needed people, not just renters, voters, people who had lived through the HOA tyranny and would stand beside me, not just for revenge, but for rebuilding. So I started making calls, quiet ones, back-channel conversations at the market, park benches instead of emails. I talked to Mamish, the veteran who had been fined for flying an American flag on his front porch. The single mom who had been told her daughter's swing set violated uniform lawn code. The retired couple who were ordered to tear down their greenhouse because it reflected too much sunlight. I made them an offer, low rent, long leases, and a seat at the table. All I asked in return was their HOA voting proxy. Some were skeptical. "What's the catch?" one asked. "The catch," I said, "is that you'll help write the rules instead of begging to survive them." By the end of 2 months, I controlled 28 properties and held signed proxy agreements representing 14 more. That gave me 51% of the vote, but I wasn't done yet. To keep Veronica distracted, I let her win. We paid every fine on time, no complaints, no lawyers. I even sent a thank you email to the HOA board for maintaining the visual integrity of our community. She lapped it up, smug, comfortable. She even sent out a newsletter celebrating record-breaking compliance rates. Meanwhile, I was writing the script for her downfall. The 29th property was across the street from Veronica's. A beautiful, neglected craftsman home. Its owners had been trying to sell for over a year. Veronica had blocked their request to install solar panels, saying they would disrupt the aesthetic flow of the cul-de-sac. I made an all-cash offer at 20% above list price. They accepted in 24 hours. Within days, workers arrived and began installing the exact solar panels she had denied. Veronica stormed across the street with a clipboard in hand, ready to deliver a cease and desist. My property manager calmly handed her a copy of the deed, smiled, and said, "You'll need to take it up with the owner." She looked at the name. It wasn't mine. She blinked. She backed off. It was the first time I saw her look unsure. And it would not be the last. 3 months in, we hit 33 owned homes, over 40% of the entire development. Throw in proxy votes, and we now controlled 62%. That's when I stopped playing defense and started planning the vote. Veronica Slate always carried herself like she owned the neighborhood, even when she didn't. But something changed after the solar panel incident. Her eyes lingered too long on every passing moving truck. Her voice, though still condescending, had developed a hint of edge. She began walking the streets, again clipboard in hand, phone at the ready. She asked more questions at board meetings. She revisited homeowner files, looking for inconsistencies. Her control was slipping, and somewhere deep down, she knew it. She just didn't know why. Yet, at the next HOA meeting, she introduced a motion for a new bylaw. All home sales in the development would require board approval, citing a recent surge in anonymous investment buyers who may not share our community values. It was a desperate move and a telling one. But she didn't know I was sitting in the back row, wearing an old ball cap, just another face in the crowd. She didn't know I'd already anticipated this exact motion 3 weeks ago. And she didn't know that I had brought someone with me. Catherine Huang, a quiet, brilliant municipal attorney out of Nashville, stood up and calmly addressed the board. "This motion," she said, "represents a violation of state-level fair housing and real estate laws. It constitutes illegal restraint of trade and infringes on property owners' rights to transfer or sell without undue interference." Veronica blinked. "And who are you?" she asked. "I am a legal representative of several property owners in this community," Catherine replied smoothly, "and I've already filed a preemptive injunction against any motion of this nature." Whispers rippled through the room. One of the board members, the only one not related to Veronica, looked uneasy. Veronica tried to push forward, but the vote died on the floor. Blocked. Publicly. Legally. That night, the HOA message board went wild. For the first time in years, someone had stood up to her and won. I stayed quiet. Let her stew. Meanwhile, my team finalized 2 more acquisitions homes belonging to people who had once voted for Veronica, but had quietly grown disillusioned. The final piece fell into place when we secured a property from her closest ally on the board, Margaret Langley. Her husband's business had gone under, and they were desperate to sell. Our offer, 25% above market value and a 6-month rent-back agreement, was simply too good to refuse. Veronica saw the moving truck the next morning. She came over in a fury, clipboard shaking in her hand. "Why are you moving out?" "We've been meaning to downsize," Margaret lied smoothly, "and the new owners were just so kind." Veronica narrowed her eyes. "Who are they? Didn't catch the name." She knew she was losing, but she didn't know how badly. That weekend, I hosted a community potluck at the old orchard behind my house. It was invitation only, and attendance was discreet. Over 30 residents came, some owners, some new renters, all carrying stories of fines, threats, and humiliation. I walked them through the plan. Not revenge, but restoration. I don't want to be the new dictator, I told them. I want us to take this place back, not to punish, but to heal it. We voted that night unofficially for a proposed new HOA board slate. 7 names, all people from the community, all people with skin in the game, all ready to stand up. On Monday morning, the official notice went out. Notice of special motion at annual HOA meeting. Proposal for full board re-election. It only needed 51% of vote holders to trigger. We had 62%. It was done. Veronica, of course, called it an illegal ambush. But legally, it was airtight. By her own bylaws. By her own rules. All we'd done was play her game better than she did. That night, I stood outside with Rosa as the last golden light slipped behind the hills. She turned to me and said, "Do you think she'll fight it?" I smiled. "She'll try. But the difference is, this time, she's not in control." It was raining, of course it was. The annual HOA meeting had been rescheduled to the community center due to weather. I arrived early, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to watch it unfold from the inside. People trickled in slowly, umbrellas shaking out near the door. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in months now exchanged quiet nods, as if sensing something was about to shift. Veronica arrived 10 minutes late, flanked by her usual supporters. She wore a crimson trench coat and held her chin impossibly high. You could feel her presence before she spoke, precise, cold, commanding. She opened the meeting with a brief monologue about community identity and protecting standards in the face of growing change. It was the same speech, dressed in different words, polished, rehearsed. This year, she declared, we propose a modest increase in HOA dues, just 18%, to ensure long-term infrastructure stability and maintain our visual harmony. We also present new language in the landscaping and usage bylaws to better align with modern expectations. She smiled tightly, already reaching for her gavel. If there are no objections, we'll proceed to vote. Point of order, a voice called from the back. All heads turned. Catherine Huang stood, papers in hand, flanked by a staffer with a projector case. Before any votes are cast, she said evenly, we'd like to introduce a motion for immediate board re-election. As outlined in Article 6, Section B of the HOA Charter, any member or coalition holding over 51% of voting interest may propose a special election. Veronica scoffed. You're out of order. This is a scheduled meeting. We represent 62% of the voting interest, Catherine interrupted, handing her a binder. All verified and notarized proxies. Your rules, your bylaws. You could hear a pin drop. Then the projector lit up. Slide after slide displayed the properties acquired by various LLCs, all linking back to one quiet trust, Summit Root Holdings. As each address appeared, gasps rose in the room. Veronica's eyes widened. Who is behind this? I stepped forward from the side wall, removed my hat. Evening, Veronica. Her face drained. You? Me. You manipulated. I followed the rules you weaponized. I just applied them with better aim. The board sat frozen. The crowd murmured. One man clapped slowly, then another. Soon, half the room was on their feet. We call for a vote, Catherine said. New board slate is ready for immediate confirmation. The vote passed, unanimously. Veronica didn't even raise her hand. She remained seated as her title was stripped in real time. I watched the gavel slide across the table to a new chairperson, Mrs. Green, a retired elementary school teacher who once had her rose garden ripped out by order of the old board. First motion, repeal of all recent fines and bylaw amendments passed in the last 18 months. Second motion, return to transparent voting procedures and open public comment sessions. Third motion, community apology to homeowners who had been unfairly targeted. And then came the final blow. Per legal review, Mrs. Green said, we propose a new bylaw. No HOA board member may hold direct or indirect financial interest with developers, contractors, or investment firms operating in the county. She looked at Veronica, eyes kind but firm. Conflict of interest has no place in community leadership. When the meeting adjourned, people didn't rush out. They lingered, spoke, laughed. Neighbors reintroduced themselves like old friends. Veronica left alone, her heels clicking softly against the linoleum. She didn't speak, didn't look back, and I didn't follow. Because this wasn't about humiliating her. It was about healing the place we all called home. Outside, the rain had stopped. A boy who used to visit our orchard ran up and gave me a high five. "Are the cows coming back?" he asked. I smiled. They never left. It's funny how quickly a place can start to feel new again. Not because the homes changed, but because the people did. 3 months after the HOA vote, the neighborhood no longer felt like a battlefield. Gone were the clipped hedges of fear, the whispered complaints, the avoidance. In their place, vegetable beds, porch chairs, kids on scooters, a Sunday pie swap on the cul-de-sac. Our orchard bloomed like it had been waiting for this all along. The cows returned to full visibility, no longer hidden behind strategic hedges. A small sign near the fence read, "Meet the neighbors. Clover, Daisy, Willow, and Junebug. Yes, they moo. Yes, we're proud." The same people who once crossed the street to avoid us now brought baskets of clover to feed the cows. Someone started an Instagram page for the farm. Local schools asked if they could bring students for field trips. A farmer's market took shape in the community center parking lot. For the first time since we moved here, I felt like a neighbor again. And not just a protester with a barn. Veronica didn't show her face for weeks. We heard whispers. She'd lost her consulting job with Horizon Terra. Her husband had filed for separation, and she was putting her house on the market. I didn't take joy in it. Not exactly. But I understood now that power built on fear always collapses under truth. It was only a matter of time. Then, one quiet Wednesday morning, I saw her, standing on the edge of my orchard. No clipboard, no makeup. Just her, arms crossed, eyes tired. I walked over slowly. "You came," I said. She looked at the apple blossoms. "It's strange. I never noticed how beautiful this place really is." I said nothing. "I fought you," she admitted. "Not because I hated what you were doing, but because I hated that you did it without asking permission." That caught me. "Permission from who?" "From me," she said, almost laughing. "From the system. From everything I believed kept order." There was silence between us. Not awkward, just honest. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "My formal resignation from the HOA. Not just from the board permanently. You won. They all see that." I took it, but didn't open it. "That's not why I'm here," she added. "I wanted to ask if you still need help organizing the school field trip program. I have experience with logistics, and frankly, I could use a project that doesn't involve power grids or deed restrictions." It took me a moment to respond, but Rosa had always told me, "Don't meet arrogance with punishment. Meet it with purpose." "We do," I said. "There's a clipboard in the barn. Yours if you want it." Her eyes widened. Then, just slightly, she smiled. By summer, Veronica had become a different kind of leader. Quiet, efficient, strangely humble. She oversaw the creation of a small educational greenhouse. She led the zoning task force that rewrote the neighborhood's bylaws to protect urban agriculture rights countywide. People forgot who she had been. Not because they ignored it, but because she worked hard enough to rewrite her legacy. And that was the real victory. One evening, Rosa and I sat on the porch as the sun dropped behind the hills. The cows grazed quietly. Children's laughter floated from the community garden. And for the first time in a long time, the land felt not just ours, but everyone's. "You ever think this all started with one stupid fine?" Rosa asked. I chuckled. "No. It started with 5 cows. a fence. And a whole lot of people finally tired of being afraid.